And I think, as you said earlier, I think a lot of it is around expectation setting. If you set the workshop up and you're very clear with the sponsorship of that workshop, whoever that may be, and say, look, this is really going to drive some actions, or this is really going to challenge your assumptions and challenge your strategy, whatever it is, whatever the design is, if expectations are clear, then people are on the whole on side with doing that.
Yeah.
And as long as the workshop broadly delivers it, and that's great. So that seems to me to be one of your critical success factors for a workshop is expectation setting. You need to get management very clear on side, looking forward to the session, knowing what they're going to get from it.
Yeah.
Are there any other extremely important success factors that you would say, irrespective of the industry you're in, irrespective of the type of game you're running, you must do this or the game will fail? One of them being expectation setting. Are there any other?
I think we touched on it earlier on, but it's the breadth of people taking part and the breadth of the view. That to me is a critical success factor. And it's pointless. That's quite a strong term, but to me it is. It's pointless going in and running a game where it's just a small cohort of the usual people from all inside the same business.
Yeah.
Because you will all mutually reinforce your own biases.
Yeah.
And nobody will want to step out of line.
Yeah.
So having that, not necessarily fully external objectivity, as you said, maybe it's a retired regulator or somebody who's previously involved in a joint venture with you or whatever, sitting in some way. You've got to bring in something like that to really force you to consider it. I think that's a critical success factor. I think the third piece is the facilitation.
Yeah.
If the organisation tries to facilitate it themselves internally, it's just inevitable that the facilitators will be skewed to one way or the other of some of the arguments that are coming out.
Yeah.
And they will side in one way or the other. You really do need to have that external objectivity of a facilitator that's not bound into it in any way, shape or form. When we've been teaching really large corporates how to do these games and how to run these games, one of the benefits that they have is because they're so large, we can train people from different areas of the business, maybe even in different countries. They can then use those facilitators from Brazil, say, to run a test in France or the UK, who have got absolutely no axe to grind on any of the issue. But for, I think, mid-range organisations or organisations where they think that there's a lot of material consequence here, we've got to get this right. I think that external objective facilitation is really important, and skilled facilitation. Because otherwise the extroverts in the room will tend to dominate. The senior people will almost tend to use language that is decisive, to come to your point earlier on, which then other people think, well, they've now made a very decisive statement, so even though I think that's wrong, I'm not going to challenge it.
The decision's made.
Exactly. Whereas as an external facilitator, with absolutely no relationship necessarily that is of consequence with that senior leader, I can turn around and say, yeah, I really like that, but I'm not sure that's necessarily important to by everybody in the room. Or I myself can challenge it if I wish to, as a facilitator. And almost then other people in the room see me challenging the senior person as a facilitator, gain confidence from that, and you then end up with a bit of echo coming from the rest of the room, and you can draw on that. So expectation, having the right people in the room. Any others? I always think there's something around timing. You need to, if you're running a workshop, to come up with some plans to address a future opportunity or future threat, then you need to have the workshop in time such that the plans can then be implemented to address the issue that you're wrestling with. And sadly, oftentimes you will see workshops that are called that frankly it's too late in the day. Some measures can be taken to seize the opportunity, but had the workshop been done 6 months, a year earlier, then actually you would have had a chance to implement some of the best ideas fully and properly, rather than rushing things through. So I think timing is a key thing. I think timing is key for the reasons that you stated around having enough time to implement stuff. So we were called in to do a game for a large retailer, and they were going to launch a new membership scheme. And we were brought in 2 weeks before they were due to launch.
Yeah.
Now, you're identifying all sorts of things then that need to happen. And there were things that we found and discovered that they then remedied in advance, and the launch went really, really well, super well. It's become this fantastic success for them as a result. But there was, there's always a danger, I think, not just of doing it so late that you haven't got time to implement the changes that need to happen. It's more the psychology.
Yeah.
If you do it at a point at which the organisation feels it's already sunk cost, or emotional attachment into developing a plan.
Yes.
When you come in and you start to show that that plan actually has problems, the individual concerned feels it as a personal attack rather than a challenge to their plan, because they identify with it personally. It's an emotional bias that they have. So actually sometimes it's not necessarily just about time to fix what we've identified we need to fix and now is not enough time. It's doing it early enough that actually people aren't so emotionally engaged, or you haven't sunk a lot of cost into a particular piece of software or IT or digitization, that when you turn around and go, actually this doesn't make any sense, people they can turn around and say, well, let's not go down that route.
Yeah, I mean, a great example. A few years ago, I ran a workshop for one of the world's 3 largest crop science companies, a real global player in crop science, and it was around the launch plan, the global launch plan for a new spray that they were going to bring out. And the product manager for that spray was in the room. The plan was rolled out, and then of course the workshop was around basically management thought finessing this plan, tweaking it, adjusting it, so it was a world beater. And actually what happened was the workshop surfaced some serious flaws in the plan, which resulted in, at the end of the workshop, the global brand director resigning because he had lost face in that meeting. But it was also symptomatic of the way that business planned, right? He had not engaged in the 2 years that he had been in that role with the other functions. He had engaged with his operating companies around the world to see if his plan was sensible and coherent. It had been done largely in isolation, and this was in fact the workshop, the first time that plan had been revealed in total to the world within the business, and it was disastrous. And so the effect of that was this poor brand director resigned, the launch was delayed for a long time, which of course has huge implications in terms of revenue expectations. But it's an example of what you were describing about timing and really being quite honest about what the workshop's about.